unlikely that there were many Normington Winthrops around, so when she read the obituary and funeral notice in the Daily Mail, Mrs Pargeter decided she had to attend. It was a matter of principle for her to show proper respect to anyone who had worked for her late husband. Besides, it was the kind of occasion where she might well meet other of the late Mr Pargeter's associates, and if she found any of them suffering any kind of hardship, Mrs Pargeter regarded it as another matter of principle to provide help for them. She was really just carrying on her husband's unfinished business. And if either of the men sitting in the row with her had been asked what the late Mr Pargeter's business actually was, each one of them would unhesitatingly have replied that he was a philanthropist. A fleet of limousines took the mourners from the Abbey to an exclusive hotel near Victoria Station, rumoured to be patronised by minor royals for saucy frolics, where, in a private room, the post-funeral drinks would be consumed. Helena Winthrop, in designer black, did not look prostrated by grief, but then she had been brought up in the upper-class British tradition that any display of emotion was unseemly and embarrassing. Also, her face no longer had the capacity for much change of emotion. Feeling the approach of age, she'd had some work done, which had left her with an expression of permanent surprise at how old she was. She had acted as hostess at many public events for her husband, and appeared to bring the same professionalism to this one as she had to all the others. The absence of Sir Normington on this occasion was not something to which she thought attention should be drawn, though her guests did seem to want to keep talking about him. Mrs Pargeter, experienced in widowhood, wondered whether Helena Winthrop would fall apart into a weeping mess the minute she got back to her empty Mayfair home, but rather doubted it. Unshakable stoicism was ingrained into women of Helena's class. She had spent so long suppressing her emotions, Mrs Pargeter reckoned that she wouldn't recognise a genuine one if it bit her on the bum. The men who had shared the row in the Abbey with Mrs Pargeter did not recognise anyone else at the reception, which she thought was a little odd. If Normington Winthrop had really worked with the late Mr Pargeter, she would have expected more of his former associates to come to the funeral. Mutual support had been one of the guiding principles of her late husband's business. She had an uncharacteristic moment of doubt. Maybe the world did contain more than one Normington Winthrop. Though Mrs Pargeter was quite capable of introducing herself easily to strangers on such occasions, this time she was content to stay within her own group. She saw a lot of Gary when he chauffeured her around, but it was a while since she'd had a good chat with Truffler Mason. Anyway, the champagne and the nibbles were of a very high quality, and the waiting staff were very efficient at keeping everyone's glasses topped up. So it was not an unpleasant way of passing a Thursday morning. Truffler was a close colleague who had worked on most of the late Mr Pargeter's projects. After his patron's death, like many of the great man's former employees, he had adapted his skills into a more traditionally legitimate area of endeavour. In Truffler's case, this had meant setting himself up as a private investigator in the Mason de Vere Detective Agency. There was, incidentally, no de Vere involved in the business. Truffler just thought the extra name made his set-up sound classier, and it avoided time-wasting phone calls from men with funny handshakes who kept talking about lodges. "So, how's business?" asked Mrs Pargeter, in a voice that still retained a hint of her Essex origins. "Can't complain," said Truffler, in a voice that sounded as though it was permanently complaining. If he had been announcing that he'd won the jackpot on the national lottery, he would still have sounded as though he had just lost a close relative. It was just the way he talked. "A bit of missing persons stuff," he went on, "but it's still mostly matrimonial. Wives checking on husbands, husbands checking on wives. You keep reading about open marriages. People not getting upset about their partner having the odd fling. Well..."